Kate. I'm so excited to chat to you. You are such a wealth of knowledge. And today we're going to be talking about food waste. And I'm all about kind of really simple, practical solutions. Obviously, I live in the city. Certain things aren't as accessible. But what I love about you is you also share that sort of practical vision. But could you give people just a little bit of background as to where this sort of passion and interest developed?
Lovely to meet you too, Holly. So my background is actually in product design. And during my studies, I did a master's in sustainability. I became pretty much obsessed with food waste, basically understanding the environmental impact of it, and then seeing it as a really positive thing that people can contribute to in terms of making the environment a better place and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. For the past 10 years, I've been working on ways to help people understand and get actively engaged with food waste recycling.
A lot of people kind of might feel, oh, composting is difficult, so they're just throwing everything into their general waste. And what's the impact of that?
In Ireland, the average household wastes about €700 worth of food, good food, every year. So that's kind of, and the equivalent in weight in that is about 30% of the food they buy actually goes straight into the bin. So if you imagine that, it's like going shopping and buying 3 bags of food and leaving one in the supermarket, not even taking it home.
Okay.
So there's, I guess, the environmental impact of all the energy and the water that's gone into producing that food. Then there's the impact in your pocket of actually the wasted money. And then when we get to the disposal of that food, there's the impact of whether or not it goes to composting or whether it goes to landfill. And so traditionally all our food waste would have gone to landfill. Now the problem with landfill is that the food waste gets put in and then it's trapped, so no air can get at it. So it breaks down anaerobically, so it breaks down without oxygen. And this creates methane, which is a greenhouse gas that's 20 times more potent than CO2. So just to put this in perspective as well, in Ireland we produce about 1 million tonnes of food waste every year, and that's enough to fill Croke Park 2.5 times. But worldwide, that's 1.3 billion tonnes of food waste every year. So you could imagine the carbon emissions for that. And actually food waste alone contributes to about 10% of global emissions. So if you think about it kind of from a user point of view and bringing that right back down to what we as individuals do in the household, you can see that individual actions by composting that food waste makes a massive difference to curtail those emissions.
What are the environmental benefits, I suppose, of reducing our food waste, and what are simple kind of things that people can do at home? And also, like, what kind of is the empowered choice to make in that's not overwhelming?
So simple things like meal planning, making a list before you go to the supermarket, knowing what you're going to have for dinner every day means that there's not food in the fridge that's going to waste. Doing a daily scan of your fridge and just bringing the products that are a bit older to the front, so they're essentially the first thing you grab. Freezing things is a great way to reduce food waste. Bread that's starting to go stale can be made into breadcrumbs. You put them in a bag, you put them in the freezer. They're there for you whenever you want to use them. You can also freeze really unlikely things, like milk is a great one to freeze. Often you kind of have half a carton of cream left over and you don't know what to do with it. Pop it in the freezer and then bring it back out and it'll be absolutely perfect. So those kind of really simple tips can be great ways to just curtail a bit of the unnecessary food waste that happens at the home. And then the second step to that is actually recycling the food waste. So making sure that you either have your home compost or you're using your brown bin. And again, that's where I guess the GreenAware products come in. So we're all about helping people to recycle their food waste. And I guess we see our products as an enabler for that. So we have our 12-litre caddy bin, and this is the caddy bin that I would use at home. And a really good tip actually when you are kind of getting used to recycling your food waste and getting into it, is just to have this little kitchen caddy up on your countertop. I think you have yours up on your countertop as well.
As you said, you have the caddy, it has the lid, there's no smells, but also it's reduced my general waste as well. And it's kind of got me much more into the mindset of separating too. But yeah, definitely that is exactly what I do as well. And all my juice pulp, any kind of vegetable toppings or things like that go in. What actually happens? What is the process, or what's the timeline of how things naturally compost?
So there's one or two places that it goes. The first is to an industrial composting facility. Now these guys are like giant warehouses. So the bin truck comes in and then he puts all the food waste into like a giant shredder, and it cuts it up really small. And then because food waste is very nitrogen rich, they have to get that balance to make good compost. So what they do is they'd usually add carbon like wood chip or something, and they make these huge mounds. And then inside the composting facility, you have these massive diggers, and they'll be churning the compost again and again, and that keeps the airflow in it, and that stops the anaerobic digestion happening, which is what happens in landfill. So this allows the microorganisms to do their work, to break down the food, and it's incredible. These compost piles reach temperatures of about 70 degrees Celsius all by themselves. And that's just the microorganisms doing their work. So that means that all our food waste is actually sterilized, and it sterilizes naturally. So there's a lot of confusion with the brown bin about whether or not you can put cooked food waste in, or dairy, things like that. Well, this is why you can, with your brown bin, put cooked food waste and dairy and things in, because it essentially self-pasteurizes itself. And this process goes on and on for between kind of 6 to 9 weeks. And then at the end of it, you just have this gorgeous, dark, crumbly compost, which really interestingly is used by local farmers.
People obviously assume vegetables, things like that can naturally compost, but are there a few other things that people might be a little bit on the fence of? Because as I said, I didn't know about, I don't eat any meat myself, so I wouldn't be aware of that. But are there other things that people might be cautious about? Like, I think, can't you compost, like, what about, say, newspapers or the inside of the toilet roll or things like that? Are there a few things that people might not be sure of that maybe you might like to clarify?
Any sort of meat, cooked or raw, any sort of plate scrapings can go in. So your pastas, anything like that. You can actually put egg cartons in. You can put your kitchen paper, so long as there's not too much ink residue on it. If you rip up cardboard boxes, as long as there's not a plastic laminate on it, they can all be composted as well.
If I use a home cleaning product and I wipe that with tissue paper, does the cleaning product sterilize, or can that still go into the compost bin?
In terms of composting, you would definitely not want too much antibacterial going into it, because again, we're talking about microorganisms doing their work here, and they won't be able to multiply if there's. But again, like compost, like our food waste is so rich in nutrient that they're going to thrive anyway.
We're all going to trip up and make mistakes and go, oh God, that shouldn't have gone in. But, I think the key thing is for people to not get overwhelmed. Like, I think perfectionism can really destroy all our efforts. And it's really important to kind of be aware that this is really helpful. And also, I do feel now we all have a little bit of a responsibility to just be open-minded to learn, but we're not going to get it right from the start. And I'm a big believer that the world doesn't need a few people living perfectly. We need everyone maybe living imperfectly, but making a few conscious choices here or there. What are the key resources where you would direct people to?
In terms of Ireland, I think the best one is stopfoodwaste.ie. They're just an incredible resource. And again, they're full of those quick, easy tips that help you A, reduce food waste, and B, learn about kind of the hows and the whys of recycling. And they've also got loads of good recipes as well on things to do with your leftovers. So they will be a really good resource. And what I love about them, and what you said previously, is just that it's really in line with, I guess, our mantra of do bits help lots. Like it's not about being perfect. I am certainly not perfect in any of this, and most people aren't, but if we do our best and if we get it right kind of 80 to 90% of the time, the impact is massive. I can actually do the maths on it. I can see the impact that people are having with using GreenAware products for recycling their food waste. One of the ones I just worked up yesterday was that this year alone, we've actually helped people recycle 11,000 tons of food waste.
Wow.
Yeah, which is just, and that's only in a year, and that's only with Irish families as well. So if we think about the impact that has on the environment, that's roughly about 50,000 tons of CO2 emissions taken out of the atmosphere. And that's a collective effort. That's most people doing the right thing most of the time, as you say. It's incredibly powerful when you put it all together like that.
On a weekly basis, it can feel small, but cumulatively, if you think of, hang on a minute, in the course of an entire year, what a difference that is making, and it becomes very empowering. And I do think we need to kind of focus on the positive. So thank you for sharing that. Where are GreenAware available, and what are the stockists as well?
Ireland, you'll find us in Dunn's, you'll find us in Tesco, you'll find us in SuperValu, the centres in Londis. So that's us there.
Yeah.
So if you look for our branding there as well, and we're also online. So if you look for us on Instagram and Facebook at GetGreenAware, you'll find us there. And again, we're all just about sharing those little tips and tricks.
One of the things that I love as well is that all of the products are very clearly labeled between whether they are suitable for home composting or industrial, because I definitely know, like, what's great is the range is very expansive. You have everything from, say, dog waste bags right up to garden waste, but it is important for people to differentiate that some of them are only suitable for industrial composting as well. So maybe do you want to highlight those ones that people just need to keep an eye out for, that they can't go into the home compost?
And the main difference is actually temperature. Home compost reaches about kind of on average about 30 degrees Celsius, whereas obviously with the industrial composting, it's a lot hotter, so things break down a lot quicker. But the material composition is actually the same. It's still all completely certified and completely compostable. So the ones that we have for the industrial composting are the dog waste bags, the compostable dog waste bags, the compostable garden waste bags, and the handy bags. And actually I filled up a shopping bag. I'll show you here. I'm a big fan of the handy bag. So this is our handy bag here.
Oh my God, it takes so much.
It takes so much, and you can get so much weight into it. So what I love about these is they're pretty much dual function. So you can use them to they're available again in all the major retailers. You can bring your shopping home with them. They're actually so durable that you could get a couple of goes out of them, so that you really get a long life out of them. And then when they reach the end of the life, you just use them to line your compostable caddy, put your food waste into them, and then they can go into the brown bin. So they're really good value for money, because you get that dual functionality out of them. But then they're also good for the environment, because not only are you using them for composting your food waste, but you can reuse them as carrier bags as well.
What's very exciting and I think empowering, and we as consumers all need to be empowered, is over the course of a lifetime, this will have a significant impact. And especially if you have a busy family and you might be generating a lot, it's really empowering to kind of know this one simple change that, as you said, is accessible in all supermarkets and retailers. It's easy to find, is going to make a huge difference. So thank you so much for sharing all of this information. It is so exciting to be working with GreenAware. And as I said, this is something I really, really believe in, because I love simple, practical solutions. But I have to say, it's a bit of a minefield getting into this. So thank you for clarifying all industrial and home composting. And, nature, it's really fascinating. And there's a lot of very simple solutions there. It's just we have to work with it more. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was really interesting. Thanks so much for having us. See you, Holly.